Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's great to have you here today. Welcome to GE Global Research and to a great event announcing something that's great for New York State, great for the Capital District, and really great for the world as we usher in the next revolution in power. I'm Mark Little. I have the great privilege of leading GE Global Research. You may know that GE Research was the first industrial research center formed in the United States. It started a few miles from here in Schenectady in the barn in the backyard of Charles Proteus Steinmetz, an original genius of the company. And from that humble beginning, we've morphed into this 550-acre wonderful campus with 2,000 men and women from around the world who are creating the future. We support every GE business, from power and water to aviation to healthcare to energy management to transportation, and we come to work every day to change the world. Our purpose here is to improve the world by stretching the limits of science and technology for our customers. We're here today to talk to you about a revolutionary new technology that our people have been working on for the past decade. But before we get into that, I'd like to welcome some special guests. Governor Andrew Cuomo, we're delighted to have you here today. Speaker Sheldon Silver, thank you for joining us. Majority Leader Dean Skelos, thank you very much for coming with us. And it's a great pleasure to have many other state and local officials here with us as well. Our Chairman and CEO, Jeff Immelt, is here as a great supporter of GE Technology and Innovation. We have Tony Jasinski, the Chairman of the Schenectady County Legislature, here. Joe Landry, Supervisor of the Town of Niskayuna. Joe, welcome. Gary McCarthy, Mayor of the City of Schenectady. Mr. Mayor. Albany County Executive Dan McCoy. And the Mayor of the City of Albany, Kathy Sheehan. Thank you for joining us. So now to introduce the initiative and tell you a little bit about the technology is Elaine Calieros, who is the CEO of CNSE. Elaine?
Thank you for the emotional, heart-riveting introduction, Mark. I want to start by thanking our gracious host, obviously, today, GE CEO Jeff Emmett, for hosting us for such a great event. And Senior Vice President and Director of GE Global Research, Mark Little. Next time, we should have you to our place. And a special thank you to Michael Idolchak. Where's Michael? Michael is he's the Vice President for Advanced Technologies for GE Global Research, but he's the true champion for this partnership. And I must tell you, I love my job. The governor does all this hard work implementing his incredible vision for New York State, creating new opportunities for historic job growth and innovation-driven economic development. And I'm the one who gets to stand here and announce it, describe it to you, and pretend to take credit for it. I'm convinced it's the accent. CNSC, as the governor says, is one example of how New York State is leading the transition to the 21st century economy, the innovation economy. 25 years ago, I asked Governor by the name of Mario Cuomo, give me $10 million to develop the first generation computer electronics at the State University of New York at Albany. Fast forward 25 years, this investment today in the capital region is in excess of $25 billion from public and private sources. The lion's share of it is from private sources. 3,300 jobs on site with more than 15,000 supported across upstate. At $91,000 a year average salary, according to the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics. The employment in the region is unemployment is 5.1% compared to 6.1% national. CNSC, New York State, is now nationally recognized as a model for innovation and economic development. In the 2013 State of the Union, the President of the United States called for a nationwide network for manufacturing innovation to scale advanced technology. What he didn't say in the State of the State is that he's modeling it after what New York is doing with Governor Cuomo and CNSC. And that was told to us by his Secretary of Commerce, who visited, and then the head of NIST, the National Institute for Science and Technology. In June 2013, the US Department of Energy took the initiative in setting up the first of these manufacturing innovation networks. It identified wide bandgap semiconductors as one of the fastest growing next generation technology and market opportunities. It stands around $50 billion today, and it's supposed to double over the next 3 to 5 years. And so today, I ask the next generation, Governor Cuomo, give me $135 million to develop the next generation power electronics. And what did the governor say? Yes. So I'm honored to be announcing on behalf of Governor Cuomo, New York State, our key partner in the region, GE, and 100 other consortium members, a partnership that is going to build the next generation of semiconductors. What's the next generation semiconductor? And yes, there's going to be a quiz after this. The focus of the next generation of power electronics in the capital region is on silicon carbide. And silicon carbide brings a lot of advantages compared to our traditional silicon. Some of them are shown on this slide. Half the space and weight, twice the power density, twice the reliability, and you can operate it at least 50 degrees higher, which brings a lot of advantages. And it's now seeing applications across many industries, led by GE. We have attracted the leading businesses in the field. The partnership is anchored with GE. It also includes Global Foundries, IBM, the United States Photovoltaic Manufacturing Consortium, Lockheed Martin, and many, many others. And the public-private investment in this partnership is $500 million, and it's seeded with $135 million from New York State. But this is great to set up the consortium, to establish the consortium, to make it competitive in New York. But I cannot underemphasize the importance of Startup New York as part of this program. New York, for the longest time, has been known, in one study after the next, that it's number one in innovation, and number one or number two in education, depending on the year. But the business climate was not as friendly as being number one in education and innovation, until Governor Andrew Cuomo came in with Startup New York, which totally eliminated all taxes for businesses coming into Startup New York zone for 10 years. And now, let's see what Texas is going to do. Impact in the capital region. We will have the first silicon carbide fab line in the United States at 6-inch wafers. It will commercialize power electronic devices used in solar, wind, medium voltage drivers, and smart grid, among many, many applications. And avionics is one of the first. The leadership support from GE and with other partners, creating over 1,000 jobs in upstate New York. And as you look at what we call the nanotech corridor that now stretches from IBM Fishkill all the way to Buffalo, with one announcement after the next, with hubs of innovation and commercialization, including Nano Utica, the Central New York Hub for Emerging Nano Industries, the Smart System Technology Hub in Rochester, and the 3 hubs that the governor announced in Buffalo of the last 6 to 9 months, including information technologies, medical, and high-tech manufacturing. We're proud to add the Power Electronics Manufacturing Consortium Silicon Carbide with GE as a partner in Albany, New York. And so, congratulations to all. Thank you to our gracious host. Thank you to the governor for creating the New York Power Electronics Manufacturing Consortium. This is where they deserve another round of applause, I think. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our gracious host, the CEO of GE, Jeff Emmett.
You know, it had been a couple weeks since I had a chance to listen to somebody with a French accent, so it's great to great to have that experience. I want to thank you for that. You know, first I would like to say, you know, I spend a lot of time in really the birthplace of GE, which is right here at the Research Center in Schenectady. But I've read about CNSE over the years, the work that Alon and many of you in this room have done, the governor as well, and the work of Semitech North and the industry you've built. And this is really one of the country's great stories. I think people in New York State or upstate New York know it well. But even nationally, I think this has been, in terms of creating public-private partnership, job creation, technical leverage, this is exactly what I think has helped develop the United States competitiveness, and you've done it right here. And Alon, I really think it's been a fantastic success, so congratulations on what you've built here. We're proud to be associated with the governor as well. The next step of the Power Electronics Manufacturing Consortium that's going to be the next big investment, I think is in an exciting next wave that we're proud to participate in. Governor, I want to thank you for your support there. I think it is great, and we're proud to be a part of it. A couple comments I would make is that if you had to pick half a dozen technologies that are going to define the next 20 or 30 years globally, power electronics is one of them. It's what's going to make our devices more fuel efficient and more energy efficient. It's what's going to drive miniaturization. That's going to allow more power density in things like airplanes and automobiles and oil and gas industry. And so you're in the mode, or you're in the area of one of the great innovations of the 21st century, early enough to make a difference and create jobs. The thing that's typically missing with a lot of these process industries, and now I speak as the investor in the room, is it takes an incredible amount of capital to commercialize these technologies. And that's what it leaves a lot of small businesses at the door, where they cannot participate because they just don't have the capital to invest in these process industries. And what investment like the one that's being made today really does is it not just helps companies like GE, but it'll help hundreds of small and medium businesses that want to innovate here, because it gives them a manufacturing location where they can test their innovations. And so this is what a public-private partnership can really do, and what it means in terms of job creation, not just for big companies, but for small companies as well. So please know that, you know, things like, I look out and I see some of my GE team out there that are PhDs. They know what silicon carbide and power electronics is, but for, it's esoteric for the person on the street. But this is going to be at the hub of creating industries and jobs in the future. So you ought to feel great about this step that you're making today. The GE team in silicon carbide is going to be an anchor tenant. We'll put about $100 million plus into this in terms of intellectual property and capability. So we're going to put our money alongside of the states to help make this successful. And you'll see when you walk around here the way that we think this technology is going to transform the aviation industry, the healthcare industry, the renewable energy industry, in ways that the power electronics and the silicon carbide can help do that. This is one of the keys to getting a point or two of efficiency in the renewable solar and wind space, which is game-changing from a standpoint of how those technologies become affordable. It can take 1,000 pounds out of a Boeing Dreamliner, which is drives fuel efficiency and makes new technologies more affordable. And so our work, which has taken place over 20 years of the fine people in the room here today, it's going to find a new home in this operation. So we're proud of that, and just want to say thanks for that development. GE's had a long-term commitment to upstate New York. Since 2010, we've added 1,600 jobs in upstate New York and Schenectady from a standpoint of our energy business and a digital X-ray, where we make X-ray panels, and the Global Research Center, and all the great work we do there. So we've continued to invest around the upstate New York area. And we've done it with our suppliers as well. Small companies like Quirky and other companies we have investments in have made upstate New York their home, and so we continue to see a good, solid place to invest in, but none really more important or strategic than where we sit right here. This is where the heartbeat of GE is, and I always tell people, if I had to show you one place in GE to get a sense of the future, not just of the company, but of the world, I'd bring them right to the Global Research Center. And it's where the people really have a chance to be involved. So we are long New York, Governor, and so we continue to invest alongside you, and we look at this as just the next step along those lines. So tremendous success in this investment over the last 25 years. Power electronics is a big deal. GE will be a good partner. We bring a lot to that, and this is consistent with our long-term strategy in upstate New York. And lastly, again, I want to thank the speaker for coming today, and the majority leader as well for coming today. We're honored to have your presence, but I really want to acknowledge Governor Cuomo. I would echo what Alon said. I met the governor 4 years ago when he was running for governor the first time, and we met in New York City, and we want New York to be successful because we are here. We are a tenant today, and we need a healthy, vibrant New York State. And we had a good, robust discussion about how to make New York State more competitive and more business-friendly. And the fact is the governor's delivered. The governor has followed up on the things that were important to the state. Startup New York is a big initiative. John Mack has been a 25-year friend of mine, and a guy that I've known for a long time. And John, behind the scenes, when the cameras aren't there, says, "Hey, this is different. What's going on in New York today?" So, businesses, we believe in private enterprise, but it makes it easier for us to do our job when we have the support and help of good government, good governance, and we see changes underway in New York State, and we think that's positive for everybody. So with that, it's my honor to introduce Governor Andrew Cuomo to the stage.
Well, thank you very much. What a pleasure to be at the GE Research Center. We want to thank everyone here at the Research Center for the hospitality and the courtesy, and let's give them a round of applause for their good work. To Mr. Jeff Immelt, who is a great corporate leader, but more than that, he's a great citizen for this country. He's of tremendous service to the federal government. He's a businessman known worldwide. And Jeff, we're long on GE if you're long on New York. Jeff Immelt. I also want to thank Mr. Immelt because we did go have a conversation very early on when I was just starting out as governor. And obviously one of the big initiatives, the big questions was, how do we get business to New York, especially how do we get business to upstate New York? And I said to Jeff, be frank, be candid. And he was. Took me 2 days to recover from the conversation, but he went through what a state needs to do to be competitive. Because we are in a competition. New York is competing with every other state in this country. New York is competing with countries all across the globe. GE can go anywhere. And the question is, what will get them here? And he was very helpful to me. He went through in great detail what this state should do if we really want to play to compete. I listened, I took notes, and we came back and we executed, and I think that's one of the reasons we're here today. One more round of applause to Mr. Jeff Immelt. To Elaine Calleros, who has so many talents, I can't even begin to tell you. He's obviously a great researcher, great scientist, great academic, but he's also a one-man economic development department for the state of New York. I think we should take out a life insurance policy on Dr. Calleros, because he has been brilliant for the industry, for the developments in the industry, but on a very practical level, he has revolutionized, literally, upstate New York, and the state owes him a tremendous debt of gratitude. Dr. Calleros. To my colleagues from the Assembly and the Senate who are here today, especially Speaker Silver and Majority Leader Dean Skelos, I want to thank them for today. I want to thank them for the participation in this program and in this state grant. It obviously wouldn't happen without the Assembly and the Senate. But more than that, I want to thank them for the past 4 years. Their story of the past 4 years and government across this country hasn't been a pretty one. Gridlock has become the word of the day, and paralysis for government has become the norm. And we had a very much different example in the state of New York. You saw government perform. You saw it work better than it's worked in a long time. 4 on-time budgets passed in a row is the metaphor for that success. But the truth is, I don't pass any budgets. The New York State Legislature passes the budget. The Assembly and the Senate passes the budget. And if it wasn't for the good work of these 2 gentlemen, none of this would have been possible. So let's give them a round of applause. Senator Skelos, Speaker Silver. And then the story of today speaks for itself. In some ways, today is a moment in time that tells the story of upstate New York, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, hopefully. Upstate New York at one time was Silicon Valley, before there was a Silicon Valley, right? This was the place where the advanced manufacturing was happening. This was the place of innovation. GE was a big part of that. 1927, Schenectady starts commercializing television broadcast. But the great innovators of the time, think about it, were upstate New York. IBM, Xerox, Kodak, Bausch and Lomb, all these great companies thinking of the next advanced manufacturing challenge. They were all in upstate New York. And then somewhere along the way, upstate New York lost its way. Somebody said to me in Buffalo, one time, I'll never forget, when it comes to the economy, Buffalo's had a bad 50 years. And he wasn't kidding. It has been a bad 50 years. Manufacturing economy changed. Upstate New York did not change with it. Truth is, state government wasn't especially helpful in that transition. And upstate New York suffered. And we lost people and we lost businesses. The notable exception to that decline was CNSC and nanotechnology. That was the exception. Capital District region has a much different trajectory over the recent past than the rest of upstate New York. And that nano industry actually made the difference. Well, we are now at a different place, and we're at a different phase, and we've taken 4 years to really track a different trajectory for this state, but we are on that trajectory now. First, nano is not just a child of the Capital District anymore. The nanotechnology explosion, revolution, has gone all across upstate New York, literally all across upstate New York. It's Utica, it's Syracuse, it's Canandaigua, it's Buffalo. All outgrowths of what was birthed but now is expanding, and expanding enough to bring economic development all across upstate New York. Second, we're now launching the next generation of the semiconductor chip, silicon carbide. I am sure when Dr. Calleros spoke to my father about 25 years ago and said, we're going to launch the computer chip revolution with nanotechnology, he had no idea what Dr. Calleros was speaking about. But he had the good fortune to like the way he said it, because he really does. I don't think many people understand what Dr. Calleros is talking about, but they all like the way he says it. So my father chose to go with Dr. Calleros, and that turned out to be a bet that returned big dividends for the state of New York. So when he explains to me silicon carbide and the efficiencies because of the ability of carbide to conduct electricity. I have no idea what he's talking about. But I believe it's going to work. So the state is investing in the next generation of the computer chip because that is also the nature of the beast. You have to continue to evolve. You have to stay ahead of it. You have to be ahead of the curve if you want business to stay here. We're implementing the same model, which was brilliant in the nano experience, which is the state owns the equipment and the facility. And that was much, much different from any past economic development effort, not just in this state, but states all across the country. And it really was a stroke of brilliance. The state owns the equipment and the facility. So the businesses come for the facility and the equipment and the research. And then the businesses stay for the cluster of the other companies that are all working on the same project and the energy and the collective energy of all those companies. So in many ways, the state finances the magnet that attracts the companies, and then it develops an energy unto itself. And it stays in place because the state owns the essential asset of the facility. So that model we will continue. $135 million from the state, total investment $500 million. It will generate thousands of jobs, and we believe it will have consequences all across upstate New York and certainly beyond the Capital District region. And it's part of an overall shift that goes back to the conversation that I had with Mr. Immelt. We have a New York open for business mentality, and we are doing that all across the board. We were the high-tax state, and that's what people thought about New York. And people are smart. If you're going to be the high-tax state, people are going to leave. Why? Because they can. They're more mobile than ever before, and they can shop. We've reversed that trajectory. Everyone's income tax rate in the state of New York is lower than it was 4 years ago on every income level, period. Middle class up to $300,000, lowest personal income tax rate since 1953. Corporate tax rate down to the lowest level since 1968. Manufacturing tax rate down to the lowest level since 1917, right? So the taxes are down. New York is not what you thought it was. I said to Mr. Immelt, give New York a second look, because we're not the New York that you know. We did that with taxes. Anti-business, we totally flipped the dynamic. We are now a pro-business state. We partner with business because the successful regions are not just going to be successful private sector regions. They're going to be the regions where the private sector has the best partnership with the public sector. And that's going to be New York. We do that with our regional economic development councils. And then, as you heard, Startup New York takes all of this and puts it on steroids. And it's very, very simple. Startup New York, regions all across the state, which are the least expensive places to do business in the country, period. No tax zones, no taxes for 10 years. No income tax, no sales tax, no property tax for any new job created. So when Jeff Immelt is sitting in his room and they're saying, well, where should we site? Where should we go? Where are taxes low? The lowest cost of doing business in the state of New York. That can't be. It is. That's where we are today. And the proof is in the pudding. You reduce taxes, you become pro-business, you end the anti-business mentality, start up New York, you work at it, you get aggressive at it, and good things happen. And you see today the job growth in the state of New York is the proof. Over 460,000 new jobs in 4 years. We are number 2 in the nation in new job creations since the recession. Number 2, Dr. Calleros mentioned the other state. I won't. But we're number 2, and we're trying harder. 7.4 million new jobs in the state of New York, 7.4 million private sector jobs in the state of New York today, more private sector jobs than ever before in the history of the state. 4 years ago, we have a $10 billion deficit, the greatest deficit in the history of the state. Today, we have a $2 billion surplus. Last week, Moody's increased the credit rating of this state for the first time in 50 years, and Fitch upgraded us to the highest credit rating in the history of the state of New York. So, we have turned the corner, the arrows are pointed in the right direction, and the best is yet to be. We had some work to do to turn the ship, but the ship is turned, and the momentum is with us, and we're going to keep it going. And what you see today is going to radiate all across upstate New York. What Nano did for the state 25 years ago, this is going to do plus. I guarantee it. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce my partner, Senate Majority Leader Dean Skelos. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Thank you, and good afternoon. It's great to join with all of you today. Governor Cuomo mentioned how his dad, when he was governor, and was explained to him by Dr. Caballeros about nanotechnology and all this. I still don't understand it. I thought back then, when your dad mentioned it to a number of us, I thought he was the Robin Williams show where they used to go nano, nano. But I am beginning to understand it. And Governor, I want to thank you for your generous introduction, but also asking the Speaker and myself to join with you on this most important occasion. Jeff Imlet, we appreciate your being with us and what you're doing for upstate New York and really throughout this entire country. And I know many of you in this room, including myself, appreciate the dividend that you pay on the stock. So, Dr. Caballeros, we have to disclose all this stuff now, so what the hell? Dr. Caballeros, we appreciate your leadership over the years, and I want to mention that my colleagues from the Senate that are here, Senator Kachik, and we appreciate your being here, Senator Breslin, and of course, Mr. Schenectady, Senator Hugh Farley. Hugh, thank you for your leadership, too. This, what we've discussed today, and often the governor mentioned, or Mr. Imlet mentioned, with some of the doctors and scientists that are here, it's a esoteric language, and I agree with you. But you know what's not esoteric? It's when you create jobs. And we've worked on a bipartisan basis for the last 4 years. We've had disagreements, there's no question about that, but in the end, working with the Speaker and the Governor, we have had the 4 on-time budgets, we're controlling government spending, we're cutting taxes, and taxes aimed at creating jobs. We want to make sure that upstate New York, and certainly throughout the state, that we revive the manufacturing industry that was so vibrant right here and throughout the state. And the way you do it, as the governor mentioned, is making New York State affordable. This is not about perhaps giving somebody a break that doesn't deserve a break. When you invest in the private sector, you're creating jobs, and when somebody has a job, that's important to them and to their family. So, Governor, I appreciate again being here. The governor was most generous, and since that'll be disclosed at some point to my friends from the press, he did send the plane for the Speaker and I to fly up, and when we looked at it, we noticed that only one of the props were working. So, but it didn't, no, it did work. But again, I thank you for inviting us here today, and it's my pleasure at this time to bring up a person that I've had a great working relationship with, the governor, our Speaker Silva.
Well, thank you very much for your warm and generous introduction, Dean. If I might, I'd like to acknowledge the members of the Assembly's Capital Region delegation who are here with us this morning. Assembly Member Angelo Santababa, Assembly Member John McDonald, and Assembly Member Phil Stack, whose district is home to GE Global Research. We're delighted to be here, where the world of tomorrow is being developed today and every day. Those of you who are familiar with CNSE and its history will understand and appreciate why this announcement is so gratifying to me and to my Assembly colleagues. Nearly 2 decades ago, I first met Dr. Calieros. And yes, I didn't understand him then, and I don't understand him today either. But he came to me with an idea for a university, industry, government partnership to create a clean room at SUNY Albany in order to advance nanotechnology. And he asked me to invest $5 million in discretionary money in order to create that clean room. As I say then, I didn't understand it exactly. It sounded good, and I got the Capital District representatives together, and we decided that he was worth making this investment. Well, given the rate of technological advancement, that commitment seems like a million years ago. But here we are, the World Center for Nanotech, R&D, Manufacturing, and Commercialization, which is probably the most important piece of all of that, the ability to translate everything that happens into jobs for New Yorkers. So taking the next step together is an infinite journey that will make the devices we depend upon smaller, faster, more powerful, and efficient, more and less than most of us can even imagine. That CNSE has forged a partnership with an investor group led by GE, the legendary American innovator and longtime global leader in technology and manufacturing, to produce the next generation of semiconductor materials and create hundreds of jobs is truly exciting and wonderful news. Certainly, it's everything that I and my Assembly colleagues dreamed about when we took a chance on Albany Nano nearly 20 years ago. More than that, it is proof that our economic development strategies are working and that New York State is indeed open for business. The key is partnership and that still burning New York desire to innovate and to be the engine of opportunity and economic growth. So let me take a moment to acknowledge the great leadership of our terrific governor, Andrew Cuomo, who understood the potential of nanotechnology from day one and worked tirelessly to expand its benefits and opportunities across the Empire State. You know, I had the privilege of being with the governor when he was first introduced to Professor Calieros. And Professor Calieros, as comfortable as he is, was so nervous that he took one of those wafers and actually broke it and cut himself when he met the governor for the first time about 2 weeks after he had become governor. But it was the governor who really did understand maybe not the technology that was in that wafer, but the potential for the jobs that he wanted New York to have. And he made the commitment that anybody else who ever spoke to Elaine Calieros made, because all of us kind of sounds like he knows what he's talking about. We don't really understand it, but he knows what he's talking about. So I would really like to salute the governor for making the commitment and for retaining the commitment. For all of his years as governor in his first term. And we want to salute the technological leaders and visionaries led by Jeff Immelt, Elaine Calieros, who I spoke about, and Mark Little for joining forces to make the consortium possible. I know I speak for my colleagues in the New York State Assembly when I say we remain committed to working with the governor, with Senator Skelos, and our colleagues in the Senate, and with all of you, to, if I might borrow an old slogan, bring good things to life and and deliver high-tech jobs and opportunities to every corner of the state. We look forward to what this consortium can achieve in the years to come. Congratulations.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. I hope you come away from this as excited as I am about what this New York Power Electronics Manufacturing Consortium will do. I do understand what Elaine Caballeros is saying, and I know what it will do. This will put New York in the leadership position in the world in a technology that will improve every industry, from aviation to healthcare to power to transportation. We're going to do something incredible here today. I hope you've enjoyed the day. Thanks very much for coming. I'd like to invite our guests to come over to this side of the room. We have some refreshments for you all to enjoy. Thanks so much.